most amazing top 10ers, how are you doing today? Any of you watching this video while you're at work? If so, what do you do? I bet it isn't as crazy as some of the things that you're going to hear about on today's list. I'm Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking the top 10 jobs that no longer exist. I'm a YouTube host, which is a job that really didn't exist until about 10 years ago. As new jobs keep on being created, some old ones die out as they no longer fit the times. Here are 10 professions that have just stopped advertising. In at number 10, we have a knocker-upper. Okay, so this is not what you think it is. It sounds dubious, but this actually refers to a human alarm clock. The practice was very popular in working class towns in the UK and Ireland in the 1800s up until the mid 1900s. Knocker-uppers were people that used to have long sticks to knock on windows and often whistles to wake people up so they were on time for work. I mean, to be totally honest, the struggle must have been really real before alarm clocks existed, so these persistent fellows made sure that those who needed to be up were up. Unfortunately for them, the practice started to die out in the 1940s and 50s as alarm clocks became common practice in the home. Now, physical alarm clocks are pretty much over too, with the invention of phones that have that capability. In at number 9, we have a pinsetter. Pinsetters were the poor souls that had to brave big, heavy balls coming to crush them as they reset the 10 pins at a bowling alley. This job was usually a low-paid position taken up by teenage boys, although there was one huge benefit. Often the lads that worked this job were allowed to bowl for free. Pretty sweet if you're a kid that just wants to bowl. As automatic pin setters were introduced, the job slowly died out between the 1950s and the 1970s. Next up, we have an absolute Victorian classic. Coming in at number 8, we have the chimney sweep. While you can still pay companies to come and clean your chimney, the classic chimney sweep job, as it was popularised in literature by Oliver Twist, no longer exists. The chimney sweep that comes to mind is actually the main sweep's apprentice, a climbing boy as they were known. These were children as young as 4 years old who were tasked with climbing up a narrow chimney shaft to clear blockages. This would stop the chimneys from blowing smoke into a room, so it was kind of important. This kind of practice was happening up until the late 19th century, when concerns were raised over the amount of children dying on the job. Often they'd get trapped, suffocate, or be scorched from a lit fire. Soot was then collected and sold on, with the boys cleaning around 5 fireplaces a day. A practice of hardening was used by their masters, who would purposefully burn their knees and elbows, then rub them with a strong brine using a brush. This basically stopped them getting more easily hurt on the job, slowing down work. In at number 7, we have a lamplighter. Back when streets were lit by candlelight and gas lamps, lamplighters were employed to light and extinguish them. Lamplighters would usually light the streetlights with a wick on a long stick at dusk and then extinguish the flames at dawn. They would also carry out maintenance on the lights, making sure candles or the gas was replaced. These days, almost all street lighting is generated by electricity, so we no longer have a need for this profession. In at number 6, it would have been a great job for me at the time, we have a town crier. Hear ye, hear ye. That's what they say. Town criers used to be people who would ring a bell in a town or city centre and declare the news to all that would listen. These were the main sources of communication and information for townsfolk and the government. At this time, most people couldn't read, so they needed to hear the news. For example, if the King of England had a child, a town crier would ring his bell and announce it in the street to rapturous applause. The same would go for information regarding taxes or town notices, such as reminders not to urinate in the river the day before water was collected to make beer. Good times. Those were the days. These days they do still exist for traditional festivals and occasions, but they aren't a proper salaried job. They'll almost always be held by volunteers. In at number 5, we have a plague doctor. I find these so interesting. When the plague was an issue sweeping through Europe in the 1600s, some people had a job of seeing to the terminally ill. These people were the plague doctors. You did not want to be a plague doctor, mainly because the plague was a highly contagious, incurable disease that almost always resulted in an untimely and undignified death. In the 1620s, plague doctors adopted a bizarre costume invented by Charles de la Orme, which consisted of a heavy wax coat and what was essentially a bird mask, which is kind of creepy. The beak of the mask was stuffed with herbs, straw and spices, and to be honest with you, like, the look of the heavy jacket and the mask made people look kind of nightmarish. Also, given the nature of their work, which included popping buboes and bloodletting, I would say that nightmarish was actually the most accurate way to describe their line of work. Blech. Another very unpleasant job up next. In at number 4 we have an executioner. So this job does actually still exist in some places in the Middle East, and indeed people will act as executioners in some states in the USA. However, this job was a staple in the more backward Middle Ages and was especially prevalent in the French Revolution. Now, as most developed countries have banned capital punishment, it no longer exists in most places. Back in the day though, the local hangman and guillotine operators were notorious in their town. Hangmen would be in charge of tying the noose and making sure deaths were quick. Guillotine operators, on the other hand, became celebrities in their own right during the French Revolution's reign of terror. Many execution audience members would chant their name and clap as they came out to do the deed, which is kinda weird. It may well sound like the high life, but being an executioner has always been a somewhat messy and morbid job that can weigh very heavy on the conscience. Coming in at number 3, joy of all joys, we have a leech collector. I don't enjoy a leech. Back in the day, especially in the 19th century, doctors loved a good leech for the practice of bloodletting. It was believed back then that the human body contained 4 humours: blood, black bile, yellow bile and phlegm. For a person to be healthy, these humours must be in balance. Sometimes humours had to be drained to achieve this balance, which meant that there was often a lot of bloodletting. Ugh. Leech collectors were usually women who collected the slimy creatures from boggy areas, often using their own legs to attract them, picking them off when they'd sucked up enough blood. Gross. As they were so often bitten by leeches in boggy areas, leech collectors were subject to infections and illnesses. So I'm not sure whether I would rather collect leeches or other people's vomit. Ugh, gross. Neither would be ideal. Probably leeches though. In at number 2 we have people that chose the latter. We have, of course, the classic vomit collector. So I suppose that vomit collectors still kind of exist in a way at theme parks, although really these are just park cleaners. Back in the Roman times, wealthy people would employ vomit collectors at banquets. Back in those days, feasts would last several hours and guests would vomit specifically so they could eat more. I mean, I love my food, but I think that's taking it a little bit far. They often did this in a special vomit collecting receptacle or simply chunned it on the floor. Those who deployed the receptacle, emptied them and cleaned up the sick were the vomit collectors, and that must have smelled, well, you can imagine. Okay, so moving on from the disgusting to the actually kind of fun to finish this list, I really wish this job still existed because I think I would love it. Coming in at number 1, we have a bard. A bard was a musician, poet and storyteller who would be employed by a monarch or noble to literally sing their praises, which is probably actually where that phrase comes from. The bard would often follow its employer around telling musical stories of their accomplishments. So for example, if any of you have seen the Monty Python Holy Grail, this is like the minstrel who sings Brave Sir Robin. I really would enjoy either being a bard or having a bard. Can you imagine? Brave Rebecca was a YouTube host, she was great, oh she was, and then she made videos and went home and drank tea and what? That was really cringe, I'm so sorry, but I would like being a bard. So that was the top 10 jobs that no longer exist, and I've just thought about this whole list and I can't believe I didn't put Vine Star on here, so if you want me to make a part 2 and include Vine Stars, the dying profession that is, then let me know in the comment section down below. Also let me know which of these jobs you would have loved to do, and I will try and respond to as many comments as I possibly can. For now, I'm Rebecca Felgate. If you like this video, make sure you give it a good thumbs up, share it with a friend, and of course subscribe to our fabulous channel for more top 10 lists. And I will see you beauties next time.